Welcome to the Girlfriend's Guide to Senior Living. I'm Gail Peacock.
And I'm Lori Williams.
And we are so happy you could join us. We're passionate about helping families navigate the senior living maze. Each episode, we will share with you our knowledge of senior living and help you to eliminate the uncertainties you face in the search for senior resources.
Hey, girlfriends, welcome back. Hope you got value out of our last show. And I just wanted to remind you that we are on YouTube, we're on podcasts, we're on Facebook, and we're also on Alexa. Kind of funny story about Alexa. I was trying to have it, just kind of demo how it worked. So I was saying to mine at home, Alexis, play the Girlfriend's Guide to Senior Living. Nothing happens. So say it like 3 more times, and then I hear my daughter yelling from the other room, Alexa, play the Girlfriend's Guide to Senior Living. So that was my very own senior moment, and it is Alexa, not Alexis. And I'm going to put a little name tag on it, I think.
Just to remind you.
Yeah, just as a reminder. So just if it's not playing for you, just remember it's Alexa. Then it'll work. Okay. So we got a lot of great feedback over on the first show, and we had some questions about different types of senior housing and how we pay for it. So we want to address that first off on the show today. So yes. Gail?
So our first type would be private pay. So private pay is going to be your savings account. If your kids want to help with, a lot of families, they pool their money together to be able to afford it. Obviously, there can be your pension if you have that. Social Security can help pay for that. So private pay is pretty much what it sounds like. You're paying out of your own bank account. And so that would be your first option that would be able to help you pay for senior living options.
Second option is the VA Aden Attendants benefit. A lot of people have never heard of that, and it is a great benefit to know about. There are some certain things that you have to follow, some guidelines, and it can help with a veteran themselves, a married couple, and even the spouse of or widow of a veteran. So for more information on that, we can always hook you up with some VA specialists, but that's just something to know about. So it's called the VA Aden Attendants Program.
Mm-hmm. Great. Good information. The next one is long-term insurance. And so that would be, everyone needs to kind of grab their policies because every policy is different. Most of the policies were written for assisted living, memory care, or skilled nursing. Mm-hmm. So it's really kind of more of a care. You have to have some level of care that it would actually kick in. So you want to find out what that policy is and what it does cover.
And then also with that, some of the older policies were written before assisted living was really a thing. So they may be written for nursing home.
Yes.
So you do have to go back and review that, but you can always have your insurance person help you with that. And then some also will cover home care in your home, which is like a personal assistant service to come to your home and help if you have, need help with bathing, dressing. Those are the types of things when your long-term care would kick in, when you actually have a care need.
And just a little mental note, if you're over the age of, I'm going to say 40, correct me if you agree, but mm-hmm. I think that we should all have long-term care policies at any age, definitely my age, because this is the way of the world, and having care or living longer, we're going to be having to have some kind of care. So mm-hmm. look into that. That should be a little side note for you.
Yeah, the younger you are when you get it, the cheaper it
yes.
is. So like you really wouldn't want to get a long-term care policy at age 75. I mean, it would cost you way too much.
My parents did that, just so you know, but it was more expensive.
Yeah.
And one other one is kind of new out there is using your life insurance. So that's kind of just been talked about in the last few years. So that might be something mm-hmm. to look into also as another option.
Yeah, so you can do like a cash out type, I think that's what it's called. But again, we can always hook you up with professionals who experts in these fields, and they can help you with that. The last one would be Medicare and Medicaid. And I receive a lot of calls, people saying, well, I'm ready to move to independent living and I have Medicare. So there's a lot of confusion with that term. So the easiest way for me to explain it is Medicare is really like your health insurance. So it's not going to cover, your living expenses to move to independent or assisted or memory care. What it is going to cover, it's like if you were to go in the hospital, say you broke your hip, it would cover that. It would cover you to go to rehab, short-term stay in rehab. It would cover if you're going to have home health, maybe physical therapy, occupational therapy, anything like that. Your Medicare will cover that as long as it's doctor ordered.
More medical side.
Yeah, it's the medical side of it. Medicaid is where there are no resources. You don't have, a lot of money coming in through Social Security or savings. And there are certain things that they look at. There's guidelines. So you have to be at a certain income level. And then also you have to have, a reason for it. So there's a lot of, you just can't assume, I'll just go on Medicaid. It doesn't work like that.
It's the government, doesn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. So, and really for Medicaid, your independent living communities aren't going to take that, and your assisted livings are not going to take it. You're looking more at like long-term nursing home, basically.
Yeah,
it's typically where you're going to go for Medicaid. So that's just
Hope
kind of a
that's
general,
helpful.
general guideline on that.
So if you have any other questions, you can always email us on Facebook, find us on Facebook, or email us as well. So we're going to kind of kick off today's show is called A Million Little Things. So we're going to kind of dive into things that we're going to all learn the signs. So what to look for from your loved one, and really be able to understand if they need a senior resource, or is it time that they actually need a new place to live, a senior living option.
And kind of the key word there is just becoming aware. And we've talked about this today and together. And it's a difficult thing as the adult child. We are busy. We all wear many different hats. We are busy. We're moms, maybe. We're working. We are, taking care of young children. So we fall into this position where we have maybe an elderly parent who's needing some help, and then we have young children and we're working. And there's a term for it called the sandwich generation, because you are right there smack in the middle of a sandwich.
The meat of the sandwich.
That you don't want to be a part of, but you're there. So we really you really have to become aware and take a look and see what's going on. And so that's what we want to talk about, just kind of give you the signs, what is, what you need to look for when it's time to have those conversations.
We're kind of in three parts, if you will. We're kind of becoming aware, then we're going to acknowledge what those signs are, and then how to take action, or if action is really needed. So in part of the sandwich generation, a big thing is that, we feel, as we're both in the sandwich generation, that it's one more place that we have to give of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it's hard for us because we're in denial. We don't want to really acknowledge or be aware of what those signs are, because then once we're aware, then we have to own it.
We have to take some kind of action.
Exactly.
And so sometimes I think it's easier to be in denial about it and think, she's fine.
Right.
I didn't see that, put blinders on, but we can't do that. We want to do what's best and make sure that our family members, loved ones are receiving the care that they need. That
they actually need.
Yeah.
And the other side of that, and so that's kind of from the kid's point of view, or the adult child. Thank you. But the other side of that is the caregiver. So if there's a couple and one is kind of, needing more care than the other person, and so then that caregiver becomes it's a full-time job for them to take care of somebody. So they start not being as social. They start not doing what they normally do during the day. If they like to go to the YMCA and exercise, they meet their friends for lunch. They're not doing that because they're nervous about leaving their spouse at home with no care, and so then that starts to take worry on them. And then a lot of times what we find is the caregivers are actually having more ailments and not dealing with them and going to the doctor and taking care of it than the actual person that you're taking care of.
Because the caregiver is feeling all the stress. And so say, for example, it's a husband and wife, and the husband has dementia. A lot of times the wife is covering up. They don't want the kids to know how bad it is. They don't want them to worry. They they don't want it to get out that,
and
there's
they're
a
in
problem.
denial, right?
They're in denial too, because then they're saying, oh, he's a little forgetful. But,
he is 90 today, so...
but, he's forgetting the kids' names or whatever. So, we know there's a problem, but they don't want to acknowledge it. So they're trying to cover it up. So you have that. You have the stress of maybe they're not sleeping well because the husband is getting up and wandering at night, and
they
they're
have one ear
concerned.
listening, so they're not getting in a good
Yeah.
realm, if you will, of sleeping.
And canceling their doctor's appointments because
Yes.
they can't leave them at home.
Yeah.
I mean, we lived it, you know.
Yeah.
We hear
Living
these
it.
stories.
Yes. Yes.
We hear them every day. So
kind of share your story about with your grandma and your mom.
Yes.
This is really amazing.
So my mom watched the podcast or the video, whatever. She listened.
Yes.
And she loved it. So thank you, Mom. But it kind of made her think of something. My grandmother, her mother had dementia, and for a long time she was able to live in a senior apartment and kind of make things work. They had a caregiver came in. They were able to make it work for a while. And my grandmother didn't have a lot of money, so she was kind of strapped financially to be able to afford to go on to that next step for care. So my mom told me that she had been just really dreading having that conversation with my grandmother, that it was time to move her in with her. And so she went to her and she sat down and she's kind of like, oh, I have to do this. And worried that my grandmother was going to be very resistant and angry. And so she said to her, she said, it's time for you to come live with me and Joe, who's my mom's husband. And my grandmother said, oh, thank God. She had been waiting for my mom to come and ask her to move in, because she didn't want to be a burden. She didn't want to put that on her, but she was not comfortable. She knew she couldn't stay in that situation, but she was not going to bring it up. So that was kind of like a light bulb moment, because I'm usually dealing with it like on the other side, and we're a lot of times the parents are resistant, and you don't really hear that story too much, but I'm sure that happens where the parents, they really aren't resistant. It's just they're waiting for someone to have the conversation.
And that senior is becoming aware, and they're acknowledged that they need help, but they don't want to have to obviously go to the to the kids and cause a problem for them and uproot their life, if
and
you will.
they do worry about being a burden. We
definitely
hear that all the time. I don't want to be a burden on my kids. I don't want to.
We can handle it. We can handle it.
Yeah, and that's all part of this being aware and acknowledging.
So our next kind of point is obviously the acknowledging the signs part, right? So now we know that there's some issues, and so now there's clues of what's going on. And so we're going to kind of dig in a little bit deeper to, as the adult children, we're going to start asking for explanations. So why did this happen? Or why did you miss your doctor's appointment? Why did there's a big scratch on the car, right? So we're going to start asking those questions so that we're becoming aware. And then the next part is going to be, is it a real problem here? Or is it just like a one-off? Like it's just a bad day, or you didn't write down your doctor's appointment, or some guy hit you and there's a story, but you haven't gotten to the story yet. And then you're going to make them know that you know, right?
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, where you're going to acknowledge to your loved one, to your parents or your grandparents, like, hey, Mom, I saw this. I saw the car. I know that there's no explanation really, and I'm aware that there's probably a problem we need to start talking about, right? So it doesn't have to be a let's sit down and be serious and let's have that kind of a thing. It has to be a conversation, and that's really, we're going to hit on other shows about just a conversation, because you can't come from the all-knowing part, because then they're going to be very resistant, and it needs to be a conversation.
Be comfortable opening up to. They don't want to feel judgment. They don't want to feel like you're going.
As no one does.
No, you don't want to come up like, oh my gosh, what did you do to your car? You don't want it like that. It needs to be.
It is hard not to do.
It can be hard. But we want to start looking for clues. So a lot of times, we live out of state. I mean, I personally do. My mom is out of state. And so maybe you don't see them as often. And then in some cases, you're seeing them on a daily basis. So sometimes it's easier to not notice change when you're seeing them every single day. Or when you're seeing them every few months, you might notice more of a change. But some things to look for would be like shuffling. So we're just going to kind of go through different scenarios.
Different things. So for shuffling, obviously it's exactly what it sounds like. So you're shuffling your feet, you're not picking them up. If they're holding furniture as they're walking, so they're really timing out and really thinking about where they're going and how they're going to get there. If it's to the restroom, make sure that they have a nightlight in the bathroom too will be helpful, because
most falls happen in the middle of the night. They get up to go to the bathroom. So making sure that you have a nightlight is critical. Also throw rugs
Yes.
Not throw rugs. Yeah, called throw rugs. Sorry, that didn't sound right. But rugs.
Designer rugs, maybe.
Maybe so. So anything that could be like a tripping hazard, you want to make sure they have a clear path, because a lot of times, when I've been in other seniors' homes, they'll have like stacks of things, some little goodies and stuff that they have.
Doodads.
Yeah. What do they call it? Tchotchkes.
Yes.
Tchotchkes, that's the word I'm looking for. They have those kind of things. So you want to make sure there is a clear path to the bathroom, especially, at night, but you want a clear path throughout the house. You want to just kind of go around the house and make sure there's no real hazards that they could trip on or slip.
And something else that you would want to have a conversation would be some kind of either walker or a cane, something that you could kind of notice that they need some kind of device, if you will, to help them, just if nothing else, to have more confidence, so that they don't feel so unsteady on their feet. So that's something else that is very easy to get and make it happen soon. So we want the action to be immediate action, if you will. So that would be something to look at.
And also key would be to making sure they've seen their physician. Let's see what's going on. Is there a problem? Is it just natural, like aging? What is causing the shuffle? Is there Parkinson's? I mean, what you want to find out if there's an underlying, some way we can treat it. Maybe even have some physical therapy might help build up their strength. So we want to address it and see how we can help improve their walking, and then also make it a safe environment so they're not going to fall, because when you're shuffling your feet, you're setting yourself up to fall. That's just kind of the natural progression. The other thing we talked about, maybe if they don't have them, grab bars in the bathroom, like in the shower.
Oh, yes.
Things like that are very important to have.
Good.
Yeah. So that's shuffling. Trouble keeping appointments. So what's going on? So do they not write it down?
Do they not want to go? Again, with the
they may not
caregiver
want bad
piece.
news also.
Well, yeah, they don't want to hear what the doctor has to say, or they don't feel comfortable leaving the person that they're caring for. So then they kind of, like we said, not going to their doctor's appointments, or just, and we're kind of hitting it more as a forgetful piece, where they're not doing their normal, staying on task, if you will. And those are signs, obviously, again, to see your doctor. Is it just because it's a one-off, or is there something more really underlying that you need to kind of talk about?
Are they missing several appointments, or was it just a one? I mean, you know what? I've forgotten appointments. We all have. But is it something that's, a habit that we're seeing they're forgetting a lot of appointments and forgetting other things too? Then we would want to get them to the doctor, find out what's going on. Is there maybe some dementia? Is it time we look at, maybe it's medication, whatever. So we want to just see what the underlying issue is.
Some other signs.
Yeah. So another one would be like not paying bills like they used to. So, a lot of times I get this call a lot from people that, my dad was like never missed a bill. He did a wonderful job with his finances. He was very private. Get that a lot, very private about their finances. But now he's either not paying or he's paying it twice. And so what's going on there? That's another one to look at.
Confusion, definitely.
A little confusion about the bills, which is sometimes a very early clue that there's some dementia. And it's not something they're going to come and tell you about. You kind of find out that, they paid their house note 3 times or whatever.
And another one to kind of look for, like we had talked about, is the car dings. Just things with the car that are not right. If you drive with your loved one, all of a sudden all the lights are on, saying you need oil change, something's up with the engine, the battery, or whatever, when we have those beautiful signals in our cars now. That's also, a sign that you need to kind of pay attention to, that they're, the car's just, not right, and they're obviously driving around in it. So that might be another piece.
Withdrawal, when they are normally very social, like mom was always at church, suddenly she's not going to church, or she's not involved in the things that she normally was. So what's going on? Is it because maybe there's some dementia and she doesn't want people to know? Is it that she's having trouble getting around and she doesn't want to use a walker? She's afraid she's going to fall. There's so many different things. Could even be she can't hear,
right?
And she's not telling you, which so many of them do that, and
she's embarrassed at people in her home because maybe her home isn't exactly kept up like she used to.
Exactly.
So it's too much effort. So, your parents and your grandparents better than anyone. And so as we're going going to say, you need to acknowledge what those signs are so that you kind of can start putting some pieces together before you're in a 911 situation, and then something has to be done right away. And that's a scary situation for everybody.
And you catch these things early, then you can either, bring in care, get them some assistance, actually even like move into senior housing, whatever it is, and you're going to give them a better quality of life.
Just
and
the
that's,
bottom line.
yeah, it's imperative. Another clue is the paranoia.
Yes.
That's one to look for.
Yes, we lived this with my grandmother. So thinking that you see people in your apartment, there's someone in your closet, someone has moved, as we said, you're remote, and you live alone, and no one's been there. So things are different. You're paranoid that someone's stealing from you. People are banging at your door. Like those stories that they start to share, whether at home or in a senior community, because it can happen there too.
Yeah, it can happen anywhere.
If they're independent, they need more the memory care
and these things
side.
aren't actually happening. It's just happening.
Yes.
And they're fearful and anxious.
And yes, and the anxious piece is what you get as a kid. It makes you anxious, and that's hard to be on the other side of that conversation, to be able to figure out exactly, as we were kind of going through making notes of, make sure that there's not an issue, right?
Yeah.
So let's call them on what it is and make sure that there hasn't been anybody in her apartment or whatever. But obviously this is signs of early dementia.
Yeah,
like what we said.
or can be. It can be other things too, but certainly, something's not right, and you don't want your mom or grandma or father at home feeling,
Anxiety.
scared. I've had stories where, a sweet little lady was in the closet, telling me she was staying in the closet at night because she was so scared. I mean, nobody wants that. That's not
a good quality of life.
Heartbreaking.
Yes.
So, we kind of came up with a little game, if you will, just to kind of help you piece it together. So we're going to become aware, we're going to acknowledge, and then the next part of it is what's the action? What action are we going to take? So we are going to do. Yes.
Lori's going to hold them the right way today.
I'm going to hold them the right way. Make sure. Oh, we never know. So yes, I'm holding them the right way. We made them bigger too, so you can see more. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read kind of a little, like we did last time, a little scenario, actual stories that we personally have heard. And then we're going to come up with the action, what action we could take. And you may see yourself in some of these in the
stories. Yes.
We've seen ourselves in them. So hopefully this will help. Okay, first one. Grandma is sharing that we just talked about this, that people are breaking into her house and moving her remote control. She feels unsafe and anxious at night. So immediate action.
Which is what we kind of talked about, is confirm that actually nothing is happening, right? And then make appointment with her physician to make sure that there is no, meds kind of out of turn, or she is taking her meds and they're not, a new med wasn't added.
Yeah, because sometimes new medications can affect seniors in different ways. They're more sensitive to medications. I mean, we all can have interactions with meds, but it seems with seniors that it's more likely. And then another thing is to make sure they don't have a UTI, which is a urinary tract infection. And in the senior world, we hear about UTIs all the time. They affect seniors in a different way than people who are younger, and it can actually, it's sudden. It'll be like they're fine one moment, and the next it's like they have dementia. They're showing some of these
hallucinations, and
it's crazy.
It's pretty obvious. So a lot of times you'll hear that's the first thing that they will have the doctor do that. To make sure through that. And then if they're not local, as we were talking about, this is the loving part, kind of arrange for family or friends, church friends or someone to kind of check in on your loved one to make sure that maybe it was maybe a one-off type thing, report back to you so you feel like you're involved even though you're miles away. Or you can hire also the private service, so private duty, if you will, and they can come out and kind of be that companion, help with meals, they can help with laundry.
Or just companionship. They can, like Gail said, cook a hot meal for them, just be a companionship, make them feel safe, and maybe even take them out to a senior center to socialize, and then report back to you, kind of be your go-between.
Your eyes and ears that you can't be.
Eyes and ears, that's perfect.
And next step for that obviously would be to try to find out either assisted living or they can't really be alone. So we want to make sure that we are putting into place if a move is necessary or not.
So, I mean, with these cards, what we're trying to give you is, okay, so you have, acknowledged that there is an issue. We want to give you an immediate action, something you can do right now, and then the next step. So it's not likely that you're able to find, a retirement or assisted living community like that. So we need to have some next steps. We need to be like detectives and find out what's happening, and then get some care in there, kind of address like Band-Aid approach, basically,
Right, yeah.
while we come up and find what the next step is going to be.
Small,
I hope that,
something small.
Hope
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Perfect.
All right, our next one is Mom is out of state. We just visited her for her 80th surprise birthday party, and we're shocked to see that she has lost weight. There's not much in her refrigerator, and she was very withdrawn. She was always a social butterfly and was a great cook.
Okay, so again, immediate action would be to confirm with her doctors that there's no health issues with the weight issue. Looks to us like she's just not eating. That whole cooking for one excuse is used a lot, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to go through all the effort, make the dishes dirty, and go through the shopping and all that.
And it's just not fun. It was fun when they had families, to cook. We hear this a lot.
Yeah,
but
now
it's
that
just
it's
not
just
fun
you.
anymore, and so they're not eating good, healthy meals.
And eating out gets old, right?
It does.
So you could get her involved or him involved in the senior center. Again, check in with neighbors.
Yeah.
Try to get, when you're there, if you're visiting, kind of get those sources aware that, hey, Mom's doesn't look so great, and she might need a little bit of love. Would you mind checking in on her and that kind of a thing?
And what could have happened is, she was a social butterfly. So maybe, once we've checked with the doctor, there's no real health issues, but maybe she's gotten to be where she's afraid to drive. So that automatically isolates you. So you can also look into things like Meals on Wheels, which is in most areas. So meals could be delivered to. That gives her a little socialization as well. And like Gail said, have her taken. Most communities have a nice senior center where they do a lot of activities. They even have meals there too. So
and she could have people. A lot of the senior centers, they do. I call them the roving book clubs, or the sewing, or the quilting's real big. So if she was social, maybe she can have people at her home. And so if she doesn't have a ride or can't get there, they could come to her, and maybe she can set up some ditties, and that'll make her happy and a purpose. Like we talked about in the last show, is all about a purpose. To have some people, so she'll get a little bit more confidence to be that social butterfly. So the next step really would be to either engage in that or find independent living. So find somewhere where she will have socialization and someone that will be making her meals, nutritious meals, so it's not that one-off that she doesn't want to have to cook for one anymore.
Yeah, and that's just, I like that for a next step. And again, absolutely fine if she's happy and we get these services into her home and she can stay home and be happy, that's great. But if it's not working and she really needs more socialization, definitely explore independent living. That may be the perfect situation for her, because she's not going to have to worry about driving. She's going to have her meal. She's going to have friends, and she can be a social butterfly again. All right, so the last one. My dad has started shuffling. He is unsteady on his feet, holding on to furniture as he walks around the house. Immediate
Yes, so what we had talked about was preventing a fall is what immediate action is, right? So like Lori was kind of explaining, to take away the rugs, make an appointment for the doctor, just to make sure there's nothing underlying there. Want to make sure that you have more lights than not, and the night light, and they're going to talk about trying to save energy, because that will be important. So the little night lights, you can get them even in the battery, right? So something to kind of light the path, make sure there's a good path that isn't anything in the way. Something that we've done for my own father is we do a walker by the bed and then a cane in the bathroom, because what we find is that they use the walker to the bathroom, but then they forget to take the walker from the bathroom back to the bed, right? So you kind of have an aid either way, and you're never really holding on to the furniture and feeling like so unsteady that you can't even move, or you're kind of stuck. And we don't want that, because that's obviously the fall can lead to a lot more worries.
We don't want them falling if
No.
at all possible. The other thing is, like we mentioned this also, maybe have physical therapy if the doctor were to order that. That's a piece that's covered by Medicare if it's ordered by the doctor. And come in and help them. Maybe it's a matter of just, regaining some strength, and
their confidence, I think, comes with doing the exercise.
Exactly.
They're going to kind of feel like they're making a difference. They're doing something to better themselves. So all of a sudden they start feeling better. And really, sometimes it's just up in here a lot of times too. So
if they've had a fall, they become very worried about falling again, and it becomes fear. And I've had that happen where suddenly, their mom's not wanting to get up at all. fall. She's so fearful of falling. And then the more that you don't move around, you lose your muscle tone. Especially the older you get, you're going to lose that muscle tone, and we don't want that to happen. And then it becomes where she's not able to walk. So we want to do whatever we can to take away that fear and help her, stay strong and able to get around.
So these are, to kind of sum things up today, these are a million little things, right? And they are little. When you talk about moving a rug, putting in a nightlight, I mean, those are little things, but they're huge. That can really make an impact. And so becoming aware of what those clues are, and then having, as we were saying, acknowledging the signs. And there's something you can do right now, so you don't have to leave. If you're there to visit for the 80th birthday, you don't have to leave going, oh my gosh, now again, feeling like one more place we have to give, right? So we can do something immediate, and I hope that's helpful for you.
These are easy things that you can do immediately. And even if it's just, next time you're at your mom's house and, she's elderly, let's look around and just see, are there some fall hazards here? Just maybe, does she have a nightlight? And just ask some questions, just little things, tiny things.
Million little
things. Exactly.
So being aware of what the signs are, acknowledging the signs, and then making sure you can step into action. So we hope that this has been helpful. Yes, for you guys.
Yep. And that's all we have for now. But just again, we'll have a takeaway, and you can always find us if you have questions. And you can see here we have our email address, info@thegirlfriendsguidetoseniorliving.com. And any questions at all, we would love to answer those for you. We're here to help, and we hope that you will reach out to us.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. As your girlfriends, we'd love to hear from you. Each episode will feature new questions. Don't keep it a secret. Share us with your friends. We're on Facebook, YouTube, podcast platforms, and even in your Alexa. See you.